The Old Trails fire near Spokane has now merged into something far bigger. Officials are calling it the Spokane Area Fires. 3 separate blazes now being managed as a single combined incident, and the numbers coming out of eastern Washington this morning are staggering. Combined, these 3 fires have burned 8,026 acres and remain at 0% containment. At least 640 structures have been destroyed in the Old Trails fire alone, with the total number of structures impacted across all 3 fires now above 600. Officials warn that number could still climb toward 100 as damage assessments continue. Roughly 60,000 to 67,000 people are under evacuation orders. This is now being described by state officials as one of the most destructive wildfire events in Washington's history. Let's get right into it. Let's start with exactly how this went, from one fast-moving fire on Saturday to a full regional crisis by Monday morning. The Old Trails Fire, the Autumn Lane Fire, and the Fairview Fire, which broke out separately across Saturday afternoon and evening, are now officially being managed together under a single federal incident management team. As of this morning's update, the Old Trails Fire has grown to 3,619 acres. The Autumn Lane Fire has reached approximately 3,351 acres. The Fairview Fire is holding around 1,046 acres. Together, that's a combined footprint of just over 12.5 square miles that has burned through Spokane and the surrounding county since Saturday afternoon. Spokane County Fire District 3. Fire Chief Cody Warbach confirmed this morning that 640 structures were destroyed in the Old Trails Fire alone. That number does not yet include additional losses from the Autumn Lane and Fairview fires, which are still being assessed. California Interagency Incident Management Team 7, now coordinating the overall response, reported more than 600 structures impacted across the complex. Officials caution that impacted does not necessarily mean every one of those structures was fully destroyed. Fox Weather's latest reporting puts the confirmed total above 700 structures destroyed. Officials warn that number could reach as high as 1,100 once every neighborhood has been fully assessed. Spokane Mayor Lisa Brown gave one of the most sobering updates of the entire crisis this morning, confirming that nearly half of the city's neighborhoods have either been evacuated or remain at risk as this fire continues to burn uncontained. When asked how long evacuated residents might be kept out of their homes, Brown said, "Monday it's still unclear. It could be a week," she said, "or it could be weeks." That uncertainty is one of the hardest parts of this crisis for tens of thousands of displaced families tonight, many of whom don't yet know whether their home is one of the 100 still standing or one of the hundreds already lost. Officials have also been careful to clarify what exactly is included in the destroyed structure count. Authorities have not yet determined how many of the damaged or destroyed structures were homes, businesses, or schools. That's a distinction that matters enormously for how the recovery response gets organized in the weeks ahead, and one that won't be clear until assessment teams can move through every affected block individually. To put the physical scale of this in perspective, the combined fire footprint has now reached about 12.5 square miles since Saturday afternoon. That's an area larger than many entire small towns, burned through in under 72 hours. New photographs coming out of the affected neighborhoods this morning show homes reduced entirely to ash, vehicles burned beyond recognition, and once familiar streets now unrecognizable to the people who lived on them. In the Balboa neighborhood, one of the hardest hit areas, entire blocks of homes have been reduced to smoldering rubble, with only chimneys and foundation slabs left standing in some cases. That kind of block-by-block devastation is part of why officials are being cautious about giving evacuated residents a firm timeline. Every additional block assessed reveals a fuller, and often worse, picture of what's actually been lost. The human cost behind these numbers continues to grow more difficult by the day. Angela and Wade Deathridge, both 49, evacuated their home shortly after 3 p.m. on Saturday with their son, grabbing only a few bins of family photos and heirloom rings before leaving almost everything else behind. Stories like theirs are playing out across dozens of neighborhoods this week, as families who evacuated with only what they could carry now wait, some for days, to learn whether they have a home to return to. Some evacuees have already been allowed back into the outer edges of the burn zone. CNN reported residents stepping through hot rubble to search for anything salvageable among the remains of homes that no longer exist. Others remain anxiously waiting outside evacuation checkpoints, unable to get any closer to their neighborhoods until officials confirm it's safe. Spokane County Sheriff John Nowles has repeatedly warned residents to stay out of active Level 3 evacuation zones. He stressed that shifting weather conditions could still change fire behavior with very little warning, even as containment work continues. For many families, the waiting itself has become one of the hardest parts of this disaster. Not knowing, sometimes for days at a stretch, whether the home they built a life in is still standing or already gone. The good news, as much as there is any this week, is that no fire-related deaths or serious injuries have been confirmed as of this morning, according to Sheriff Nowles. Given the scale of destruction That is being treated as a genuinely significant outcome, but officials are careful to note that the situation remains ongoing, and that number could still change as search and assessment work continues across the burn area. The response. Let's talk about the response, because the scale of resources now committed to this crisis has grown dramatically since Saturday. More than 900 firefighters were working these fires. As of Monday, a number of officials expect to grow past 2,000 over the course of this week, as additional crews arrive from across Washington and neighboring states. Washington National Guard Major General Gent Welsh has asked residents for patience as crews work to safely reopen affected areas. That process, officials say, cannot be rushed given how unstable some of the burned terrain remains. That growth, from roughly 900 firefighters to an expected 2,000 plus within a matter of days, tells you how quickly this incident escalated from a single county response into one of the largest firefighting mobilizations in the state's recent history. Governor Bob Ferguson confirmed he spoke directly with President Trump by phone over the weekend. He expressed his support for what the people are going through, as Ferguson said following that call. Washington's entire congressional delegation has since written directly to President Trump, asking for an expedited federal emergency declaration. They wrote that hundreds of people have completely lost their homes and farms, and many are prohibited from returning to their homes or neighborhoods as crews continue to extinguish smoldering embers. Governor Ferguson confirmed a request for immediate FEMA support has already been submitted, along with a separate request for federal recovery funding currently underway. That combination, a governor's office, a full congressional delegation, and a direct presidential phone call all mobilizing within 72 hours of ignition, reflects just how quickly officials recognize the scale of what was unfolding in Spokane. The drone problem, one of the more frustrating obstacles crews have faced this week, has nothing to do with weather or terrain at all. Officials have repeatedly urged the public to keep drones out of restricted airspace above the fire zones after multiple unauthorized drone incursions forced aerial firefighting aircraft to pause operations entirely. Every time that happens, water and retardant drops that could be slowing the fire's spread get delayed sometimes for hours at exactly the moment crews need every available resource in the air. Officials have been direct about this. Flying a personal drone near an active fire, even out of curiosity, can directly put homes and lives at greater risk by grounding the aircraft that are trying to protect them. So why is a fire that started in an open field on Saturday still completely uncontained 3 days later? The answer comes down to the same pattern we've been tracking across the Pacific Northwest all summer, but concentrated into an extraordinarily dangerous 72-hour window. Washington's Department of Natural Resources confirmed the Spokane Area Fires remained completely uncontained as of this morning. Spokesperson Courtney James noted, these fires are just 3 among dozens burning across the western United States right now, all competing for the same stretched federal, state, and local firefighting resources. At least 390 square miles, or roughly 1,000 square kilometers, have now burned across Washington state this year. That's a number driven by the same severe, prolonged drought and historically low snowpack we've discussed on this channel throughout the summer. The fires have jumped roads and rivers repeatedly since Saturday. Thick smoke and haze have settled across the entire region, cutting visibility and worsening air quality for residents well beyond the immediate evacuation zones. 0% containment after 3 full days is itself a significant number worth sitting with. It means that despite more than 900 firefighters, aerial resources, and National Guard support, all committed to this incident, crews have not yet been able to establish a single confirmed containment line around any of the 3 fires. That's not a reflection of effort. It's a reflection of just how aggressively these fires have continued to move through dense, dry fuel across a landscape that hasn't seen meaningful rainfall in months. There is, finally, a genuine reason for cautious optimism in today's forecast. Calmer winds and cooler temperatures arrived over the weekend, and officials say those conditions are already helping crews make real progress after days of near-impossible fire behavior. Fire officials expect firefighters to make what they're calling significant gains over the next day or two as this cooler, calmer pattern holds. But that window won't last. Forecasters are warning that hot, dry conditions are expected to return by the middle of this week, which means crews are racing to lock in as much containment as possible before conditions turn against them again. That's the same pattern that's defined this entire wildfire season across Oregon and Washington. Brief windows of relief, followed by a return to the exact conditions that made these fires so dangerous in the first place. Beyond the 3 fires burning directly in Spokane County, this crisis extends much further across the state tonight. Officials confirmed 17 separate wildfires are currently burning across Washington. Level 1. Get ready. Evacuations were issued for residents near Rathdrum. Evacuations for the Espanola fire near Medical Lake were downgraded from Level 3 to Level 2 as that fire stabilizes. And a fresh Level 3 ICE Go Now evacuation order was issued for the Lake Chelan South Shore area near Manson. Each of those incidents is competing for a share of the same statewide firefighting resources currently concentrated on the Spokane complex. That means any one of them could escalate quickly if crews have to be pulled away to respond to a new priority elsewhere. More than 40,000 utility customers remain without power across the Spokane region as of this morning, a direct result of fire damage to electrical infrastructure across the burn area. For displaced families, that power outage complicates an already difficult situation. Refrigerated medication, home security systems, and basic communication all become harder to manage when power is out on top of an active evacuation order. Amid all of this, the Spokane community itself has already begun to respond. A regional relief effort has raised more than $1.55 million so far for families displaced by these fires. The Rose Creek Longhouse has opened as a dedicated safe space for community members directly affected by the crisis. Local businesses across the region have also stepped up, with several Spokane area restaurants and retailers offering free meals and supplies directly to evacuees at shelter locations this week. If you are in or near any of these evacuation zones tonight, here is exactly what officials are asking you to do. First, if you are still under a Level 3 evacuation order, do not attempt to return home even briefly until officials explicitly confirm it is safe. Sheriff Nowles has been direct that weather conditions could still shift fire behavior with very little warning. Second, if you're in a Level 1 or Level 2 zone, including the areas near Rathdrum and Medical Lake, stay ready to move quickly and continue monitoring official updates. Containment status in this event has changed rapidly and repeatedly over just the last 3 days. Third, do not fly personal drones anywhere near the fire zones under any circumstances. Every unauthorized drone incursion this week has forced aerial firefighting aircraft to ground, directly slowing the response crews are racing to complete before hotter. Weather returns midweek. Fourth, if you've lost power due to fire damage, treat downed lines and damaged infrastructure as live and dangerous, and report outages through your utility provider, rather than attempting to investigate damage yourself. Fifth, if you're able to donate to verified local relief efforts supporting displaced families, that support is already making a direct difference, with more than $1,055 million raised so far for Spokane area residents who've lost their homes. And finally, if you're an evacuee waiting to learn the status of your own home, officials are asking for patience. Mayor Brown has been honest that full assessments could take a week or more, and premature information could cause unnecessary additional distress. If you have friends or family in Rathdrum, Medical Lake, or the Lake Chelan South Shore area, check on their evacuation status directly rather than assuming they're already aware, since multiple evacuation levels across the state shifted again just today. And if your neighborhood is currently without power, treat the outage itself as a safety issue, not just an inconvenience. Avoid using candles or open flames for light, given how dry conditions remain across the entire region right now. Closing. 3 days ago, this was a single fire burning in an open field west of Spokane. Tonight, it's one of the most destructive wildfire events in Washington's recorded history, with hundreds of families still not knowing whether they have a home to return to. The cooler weather arriving over the next day or two gives crews a genuine chance to gain ground before conditions turn again by midweek. That window matters enormously for everyone still waiting on the other side of an evacuation line tonight. This has become, in the span of just 3 days, a story about an entire city testing what it means to respond to a disaster of this scale together. Mayors and sheriffs are coordinating in real time. A governor is on the phone with the president. A congressional delegation is writing directly to the White House. And a community has already raised over $1.5 million for its own neighbors before any federal aid has even arrived. To the more than 900 firefighters on the ground right now, and the thousands more arriving throughout this week, thank you. To every family who evacuated with nothing more than a few photos and the clothes they were wearing, we are thinking of you tonight. I'll be back with a full update as containment numbers change and as this week's weather shift plays out across the fire lines. If tonight's update helped you understand what's happening in Spokane, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Stay safe out there and take care of each other.